Storm Team 8 is tracking a severe weather alert.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Brian Sterling. As you can tell, we've got a lot going on this evening. We are tracking severe weather moving through West Michigan. We want to get right to Ellen and Blake in the tracking center.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, as you mentioned, we are tracking a lot. There's a lot happening, so we'll break it down piece by piece. Most pressing, though, is a tornado warning that is now in effect for southern Van Buren County. We also have severe thunderstorm warnings in effect for Allegan, Van Buren, Kalamazoo, parts of Eden County as well. Let's take you to graphics full at this time. We'll show you what's happening with this tornado warning, unless Ellen has something she wants to add at this time.
No, I'm just going to walk county by county through where the tornado warning is at this point in time. So if we did graphics full, or whether we wanted to look at this right here, you can see that most of the action right now is in the southern portion of our viewing area. We've been watching this line form literally from infancy, and it's continuing to move at about 45 to even 50 miles per hour. A lot of lightning with this, a lot of action. Potentially some pockets of damaging wind gusts. We've already seen some hail reports today, about a ½ inch to 3/4 inch in Kalamazoo and Van Buren. But what's catching our attention lately is this tornado warning that originally triggered in Berrien County and now is continuing to track almost due east into Van Buren County. So we have a fresh tornado warning for Van Buren County, especially riding the southern county line here. This is taking the rotation between Sister Lakes and Keeler at this point in time. So even though the tornado warning stretches to the north through Hartford, Lawrence, over I-94 into Paw Paw and Elmina, we really are watching the southern portion of this storm more than any other part of it, because that's the part of the storm that could spin up strong wind, specifically tornadic winds. And when you're talking about a tornado, at the low end, it's about 80 miles per hour. And within a few scans, sometimes it can bounce up to even higher levels than that. So with winds of 80 miles per hour possible, that's enough to uproot trees, lift up some portions of roofs. Right now, it looks like the rotation to me is over Woodland Beach, Sister Lakes, Maple Island, Sandy Beach. And then expanding this view just a touch, we have some of our velocities sampling that portion of the storm. And at times we've seen some of the wind speeds circulating around coming in at about 80 to even 90 miles per hour. Looks like this should continue to track to Sister Lakes at about 11:04, Decatur, just south of Decatur, close to about 11:17 or so. And the portion of this storm of the rotation has quite a bit of lightning associated with it, which is not a good sign. It means that there's a good chance that it's very potent, very strong. Eventually getting to about 11:32 as we get to the tail end of this warning box. This is as it gets closer to Kalamazoo County. So that's the tornado warning in full. But that's not the only storm that we're watching. We're also watching severe thunderstorms for additional potential damage, less tornadic, but more just pockets of wind and pockets of hail. In fact, one of the reasons why we're seeing so much lightning with this system is because we have so much hail at play. This is where the storm started, over in Stevensville, and it's continued to track and hold on to rotation, so that means it's something that we have to continue to watch. It hasn't let go of the rotation quite yet. This is a pretty potent system feeding off of really warm air. I mean, my goodness, look at all of these storms that have erupted over portions of West Michigan right now in Allegan County and mainly to the south into Van Buren, Kalamazoo, Calhoun. All of this is going to lift into West Michigan as we go through the evening hours, though, so we all have a chance of seeing severe weather, Blake.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, not only are we tracking the tornado warning that remains in effect for southern Van Buren County till 11:45, we are also tracking storms that are moving up toward Grand Rapids. So let's get you to a full screen graphics to give you a full look at what's happening now. And again, let's start on this tornado warning storm. Ellen just kind of gave you a rundown, but what's interesting about this is you can still kind of see a hook in there, what is considered our area of rotation kind of right in here. And if we look at velocity or wind speeds, that's exactly where this area of rotation is located, right over Keeler at this time. And this thing is tracking basically east-northeast, so toward Decatur, eventually toward Lawton if this thing holds together. We also have what appears to be some pretty strong winds that may be ongoing north of I-94, close to the Texas Charter Township area, Mattawan, Elmina. This is lifting northward as well. This is not tornadic, but it may be enough to produce some wind damage. And then if we turn on the reflectivity, all these storms are lifting north, especially this line stretching across Allegan and Berry counties. This is lifting north toward Grand Rapids. Ottawa, Kent counties. This will be on your doorstep here within the next half hour or so. But of course, the storm of most concern continues to be this tornado warning in southern Van Buren County.
Yeah, right now we're watching too, because low-level spin is essential for storms to survive in environments like this. And one of the ways that we monitor low-level spin is truly just looking at the wind at the surface. All day today, the wind has been out of the due south, and that's helped to pour in tons of heat and even a bit of moisture for this time of year. Right now, for areas like Berrien County and Van Buren County, the wind isn't just out of the south, it's almost out of the southeast. And that actually is key for a system like this because it brings in the wind from a direction from the southeast, whereas the storm itself is moving off to the northeast. So right there between the low levels and the upper levels, you have spin. It's one of the reasons why this storm is likely one of the only ones that we're monitoring right now for the potential of an isolated tornado, even though we have a lot of activity on the board. This storm that's over Keeler and Decatur is one of the only ones that's in the position to get rotation out of the atmosphere. And if you watched us earlier this evening, we were talking about how one of the best chances for tornado warnings would be close to the Indiana state line. I'll have you guys flip to my graphics here. And we can zoom in on which storm.
3, if you're able to.
Yeah, graphics 3, so sorry. Is the one that's most likely to produce a tornado. Watervliet, right now you're clear. Sister Lakes, you're actually probably in the clear as well. Please don't leave your safe spot yet. And please be very careful if you head outside, because oftentimes, even if there's not a tornado, a strong storm can knock down power lines that can be very difficult to see after dark.
I still don't like the look of the hook shape that we have on reflectivity here. That suggests that not only is rotation ongoing, but we'll have to continue to watch for the potential for it to strengthen. Typically, obviously, we look at the wind speeds, but what's also important to kind of examine is the reflectivity itself. And when you get kind of a hooking shape, as you can probably imagine, that brings the potential even greater for a spin-up tornado. And that is what we're continuing to keep a pretty close eye on. And in fact, if you're able to go back to graphics 1, I'll kind of show that to you. So if we were to kind of draw the contour here, notice how this thing kind of hooks down right into Sister Lakes and then kind of comes back around. In fact, this kind of has the look of a classic supercell to it. And if we turn on the velocity, that's exactly where we have the rotation. As Ellen mentioned, with the southeasterly winds coming in, this is the area of rotation that we have right here to the south of Keeler that essentially continues to move east-northeast toward the Decatur area. So all indications are that this storm is still healthy. There's still a fair amount of lightning with it, especially centered around this part of the storm right here, which indicates the storm is still strong, capable of producing rotation, perhaps a tornado. I want to quickly bring your attention also to an area across parts of far northern Van Buren and Kalamazoo County that has a lot of lightning with it, and also looks like some strong winds potentially. And this is right along the Van Buren Kalamazoo state line that looks like it may have some strong winds ongoing. Radar sampling potential for winds up to 60 miles per hour, and it looks like there's a potential for some hail with this as well. And again, this would be centered over Alamo or just to the west of Alamo. So we're keeping an eye on that. That certainly has our attention, as well as the storms that are lifting northward. If you're in southern Allegan County, the severe thunderstorm warning has been dropped for you. But this tornado warning is ongoing for southern Van Buren County, and it looks like this thing is not weakening much at all. And as Ellen mentioned, we have pretty much an undisturbed atmosphere to the south of the storm, which indicates that inflow into the storm is able to continue from the southeast, and that means we'll likely continue to see this storm exhibit rotation for the near future.
That storm that you were just talking about near Alamo with the big lightning count, if we switch over to our hail view on graphics 3, you can see where hail is most likely to occur with a little pink blotch. And right there, right to the west of Alamo with all of that lightning, is a little pink blotch, which indicates the chance of hail at least an inch in size. Hail of at least an inch in size can do damage, but luckily it looks like this latest scan has come in as the storm is lifted towards Alamo. And even though the storm itself still looks strong, the potential for hail has dropped off slightly, which means the organization might not be great. That's a good thing because no one wants hailstones of an inch in size or more to land on their cars or rooftops. We have right now an active severe thunderstorm warning for Allegan County for a line of storms that's lifting through Wayland as we speak. So likely continue to move into Kent County, but it's also attached to a line that's tracking through Berry County. It's past Orangeville, past Gun Lake, moving towards Middleville and Hastings. And notice, our friends at the National Weather Service have not pulled the trigger for a warning on this yet. Still, big downpour for Middleville and Hastings. The fact that a warning has not been issued for Berry County yet has me thinking that unless something huge changes, we might not see a severe thunderstorm warning issued for Kent County or Ionia County at this time, but we will have to monitor it. I think Blake is exactly right. It's hail and the chance for a tornado that we have to watch at this point.
Yeah, we're hearing from the National Weather Service. Sorry for the flip-flop. If you're able to go back to graphics 1, Weather Service says they're not only watching this area of rotation here in Van Buren County, they're also watching a potential area of weak rotation in central Allegan County, as well as in northwest Kalamazoo County, and there's also an area of weak rotation in southern Eagan County. So although the area of rotation is most pronounced right now in southern Van Buren County where we have the tornado warning, we're also watching several storms that appear to be exhibiting at least weak rotation. And if we were to take you kind of storm by storm, we have, again, this storm which continues to look pretty healthy and is continuing to exhibit signs of pretty strong rotation. If we look at the current rotation, you can see it's a bit more broad now. Typically, we'd want it to be a bit more focused for any sort of imminent tornado threat. That's not to say that there could not be a tornado located within this, but the fact that it's spreading out may be good news. The other part of this that is actually exhibiting signs of fairly strong rotation, at least on our radar, is located in far western Kalamazoo County, right along M43, a few miles west of Kalamazoo. I believe this is Texas Charter Township. Perhaps a bit farther north than that. This whole storm looks to be rotating, and there's a lot of lightning in there, which means that hail may be possible with this as well. In fact, if we were to turn on hail, you can see a bit of a sign there on the northern edge. But that's one area that I think we're going to have to watch here over the next several minutes. In addition, we have this area in central Allegan County, which is exhibiting at least signs of weak rotation, nothing strong enough to indicate an imminent tornado threat. But notice that this is on the kind of the southern edge of this storm that is lifting essentially due north toward the Hamilton area, M40. Again, no signs of a tornado with us at this time. And we also have an area of rotation that looks to be just to the south of Olivet that is tracking into Eaton County. So again, we have 4 main areas that we're watching. Ellen, this one has kind of had our eye for a few minutes. I think that part in western Kalamazoo continues to bear close watching, but also looks like in the latest scan, rotation may have tightened up a bit to the west of Decatur. And this thing continues to look pretty healthy in terms of winds.
And as we've been mentioning, when it comes to storms like this, you really have to watch scan by scan because the storm is moving into a new environment scan by scan. And as it interacts with the environment, the new one, it could either trigger more rotation or a slight weakening or complete dissipation. But this storm that we've been watching for several scans has exhibited pretty consistent rotation and pretty tight rotation occasionally. As Blake mentioned, we're starting to see this almost take on a bit more of a bow shape. That means we have less of a chance of maybe the 80-mile-per-hour winds, but a bit more of a chance of seeing some winds gusting to still severe criteria up near 70 miles per hour for locations like Decatur. So Decatur, at this point in time, even though you're under a tornado warning, it might be more of a straight line wind threat that's starting to roll closer to you. But again, scan by scan, we'll have to monitor to see if there's a quick spin up as this continues to track on the south side of Fitchburg with the maximum wind speed. Now, something else that we've been mentioning is the fact that we're using radars to sample what's happening in these storms. It's one of the only ways that we can see what's going on. Our radar is located in Grand Rapids. So as it's scanning the sky all the way down in Van Buren County, it's inherently slicing through a portion of the storm that's a little further off the ground. So the rotation and the wind speeds that we're seeing in places like Van Buren County are higher aloft than some of the wind speeds that we're sampling in Allegan or Kalamazoo. That means those winds have further to travel between cloud and ground, and sometimes they struggle to make it there. Regardless, the risk is present for damaging winds to drop down to Decatur. Arrival time to Decatur is still at about 11:19 at this point in time. South side of Lawton, close to about 11:27. Matawan, it looks like the most intense winds will miss you, and Pawpaw to the south at this point in time. But again, it still bears watching. Monitoring some of these other weak areas of rotation, I'm not seeing anything too concerning at this point, aside from the fact that we're keeping an eye on it. Blake?
Yeah, let's do a quick reset if we can now that we're at 11:15. We've been on the air now for several minutes. Here's a look at what we're tracking on radar. If you're in Ottawa or Kent County, no warnings for you at this time, but you're likely starting to hear the thunder, see the lightning off in the distance. We are starting to hear it here in our Heritage Hill studios. Storms are approaching. Again, at this time, nothing severe in the Grand Rapids area as this storm continues to lift north, but you'll see there a lot of lightning. Not any major signs of hail with this, but again, the lightning count is most significant. If we were to put a tracker on this, I mean, we're talking several hundred lightning strikes reported with these storms. So if anything, they may have a bit more bark than bite, at least in Ottawa and Kent counties from what we're seeing. The area of most concern right now is located in Van Buren County, where we have a tornado warning, and the more we watch this reflectivity or this radar scan by scan, it continues to pick up in reflectivity, which means it's strengthening and it's also exhibiting potentially signs of dropping some hail. If we were to look at this remains in effect, by the way, until 11:45. The Weather Service has opted to continue it. They believe there's still a threat for a tornado with this storm. And if we were to look at the winds within this storm, this is the area that we are watching the most. We're located heading into Decatur. So if we were to take this down to a close level, if you are in the Decatur area, M51, really if you're anywhere in proximity of Decatur, you should be heading to your tornado safe spot if you're not there already. As tornado is certainly possible within this storm. M51, this will continue to track off to the east, more so than the north. So if you're in Lawton, now's the time to begin preparing to head to your tornado safe spot. You likely still have a few minutes left, but Decatur, this is almost on top of you. And at this point, reflectivity is picking up again, which means that the tornado threat, I think, is increasing here in the Decatur area in southern Van Buren County.
Yeah, pulse by pulse, scan by scan. Decatur again within a matter of minutes. This will be zooming over you, headed over towards the Lawton area. Blake is changing the view here, and these are different tools that we use just to confirm what we're seeing and making sure that we're passing along accurate information to you. He's drawn a circle over where rotation is most likely. And as we've been sampling the winds in that area, it's looking more and more likely that the wind speeds are at least 80 miles per hour or higher. And again, that can mix down at any time. So here we have 84 mile per hour winds potentially mixing down to the surface. And this could go right over Decatur proper. Yeah. It's a decent road network there. Got a lot of homes in that area. Stapleton Road, M51, 42nd Street, all need to be on standby. This looks like it's rolling right towards County Road 352 and could just continue to cut down that direct path, that line, because the system is moving basically west to east at this point.
It's picking up. Yeah,
it is picking up in intensity. So Pittsburgh, Decatur, it almost looks like it's starting to hook north just a little bit too, northeast.
Yep.
In my opinion, so we'll have to watch that.
This would be heading toward Lawton if it continues on its current trajectory.
Yep, Lawton, Matawan, Pawpaw. If you live in Lawton, Matawan, or Pawpaw, I think now's the time to maybe gather up your stuff, head on down to your safe spot. Better safe than sorry. And honestly, these storms are moving so quickly that you'll likely only have to take cover for 25 minutes at most, and then you're in the clear.
Yeah, as we just mentioned, as Ellen mentioned, you'll have to kind of forgive us because we are switching from tool to tool, but all indications are that this rotation is pretty strong near Decatur. And again, it's important to know, we've been noting it all night, that this is fairly far away from the radar, and so it's scanning up a little higher. So let's flip over to the northern Indiana radar site just to give you perhaps a better idea. And you can see this is the different color scheme, same idea. This area of rotation looks to be centered perhaps now just to the north of Decatur, and some of our latest scans are right over it. So if you're in Decatur, you're likely if there is something on the ground or if there are strong winds, you're likely experiencing that right now at this moment. And again, it won't be long before this thing moves pretty quickly toward Lawton. In fact, the latest Grand Rapids scan, if we were to flip back to their radar site, indicates, yeah, right over M51. And this is moving almost directly toward the town of Lawton. So if you are in Lawton, now is probably the time to start moving to your safe spot. This thing is moving quickly. And if we continue to look at the environment heading into this storm is untapped. Now, if we were seeing storms that were developing here in the southern edge of this, that would likely start to muddy it up. But the fact that the environment to the south of this is almost completely clear, as Ellen has mentioned, means that winds are continuing to flow into this storm and likely enhancing the rotation. And there are very little signs that this storm will be weakening in the near future. So if you are in Lawton, perhaps as far north as Paw Paw, Matawan, now is the time, as Ellen mentioned, to start getting to your tornado safe spot as this thing is tracking due north.
Welcoming Sarah Flynn to the tracking center. Thanks for coming in.
We have a new severe thunderstorm warning. I'm just going to show real quick, Ellen, then I'll let it get back to you. We have a a severe thunderstorm warning for northern Kalamazoo County, eastern Allegan County, and all of Berry County. And this looks to be for the storm that is south of Charlotte. Forgive me, they're updating several warnings here. Extending from Plainwell to near Westwood, moving northeast at 40 miles per hour. Other storms are near Allegan and moving east. So this warning is for this complex of storms right near Plainwell. And I'll hand it over to you now, Ellen, so you can show folks what's happening.
Right, kind of confusing because we already have a line of storms that's lifting through Hastings. That's not the one that we're concerned about. It's rather the one that's on the north side of Kalamazoo that's been producing a lot of lightning. This is the system in full. Muskegon, right now, you're just seeing some rain from this. We had some lightning lift through that's headed towards Ludington. Grand Rapids, some light to moderate rain. That's about it, a few flashes of lightning. But it looks like Grand Rapids and Holland at this point in time missing the severe weather threat. Not a bad thing. Allegan County, Berry County, over towards places like Van Buren, Kalamazoo, and Calhoun. Those are the folks that we're watching carefully for the potential of severe weather. Remember, everyone has a flash freeze tomorrow, and it's because we have this potent setup that we're seeing strong to severe storms. And the one that we're monitoring the most closely is, of course, the one that has the tornado warning attached to it. It's a storm that started rotation offshore of Lake Michigan. It's now moved into Van Buren County. We've changed views so that you can see the rotation tracker. Everything in green that you see shows at least some rotation. And at first it looked like it was starting to string out a bit, potentially producing some straight line winds. But now we're starting to see a strengthening in rotation itself. In fact, this latest scan just coming in north of Decatur, and that shows that the rotation is actually beginning to become even more evident. So strong rotation possible. This is as this storm lifts just across 42nd Street. We're headed towards 39th Street. This is north of County Road 352. And what's interesting is this storm has been tracking almost due east for a good, I would say, 10 minutes. But now that we're starting to see the rotation strengthen, it's hooking the actual system to the north just a touch. So the latest scans have started to take this and potentially the portion where the strongest wind is, aka the tornado, and track it up to the northeast. 74th Avenue, 39th Street, 72nd Avenue, 76th. This is all right around the Decatur area. If I'm saying your street name, you absolutely need to get into your safe spot. Lawton, at this point in time, I would say go ahead and get into your basement. We're not talking about a major tornado at this point. In fact, we're not even talking about a confirmed tornado at this point. But when it comes to storms like this, it just takes a single scan to bring that circulation down to the ground. And this is strong enough to knock down trees. It's strong enough to lift up portions of roofs. So it's better safe than sorry. We have seen tornadoes in February before in Michigan, and they landed around this area. So historically, this is not impossible. Portage, ways to go yet, but this is technically starting to head towards you. Arrival time 11:49. This is going to slice potentially on the south side of Matawan, but Matawan is another spot that I think needs to be on standby. This is on the tail end of a much bigger system, and we are watching a lot of pockets within this entire line to produce maybe gusts of wind, larger hail, but by far, biggest concern continues to be this cell that's cutting on the south side of I-94 through Van Buren County and heading towards Kalamazoo.
Yeah, Ellen, what's concerning to me is that as this thing makes a northern trek, if it continues on its current trajectory, that would place it into eventually some fairly populated areas of Kalamazoo County. So if you are in Kalamazoo County, even if you're not under the severe thunderstorm warning, you need to be watching the storm closely, because this is the latest scan, and that indicates some pretty strong rotation that is heading right into the Lawton area. This is perhaps the strongest rotation the storm has seen so far. We've been tracking it since it's been in Berrien County. This is the most pronounced rotation signature that we have seen so far, and it is currently located between Decatur and Lawton, and it looks like it's tightened up even more here in this brand new scan. So let's take you to full screen now. We're going to give you the latest track on this. Again, this continues to be a concerning situation for the folks in the Lawton area. If you are in the city of Lawton, you need to be heading to your tornado spot immediately. This is going to be crossing over the main road that runs through Lawton Main Street. But this core of rotation now, and what's important to remember is that as these storms scan, by the time they scan the storm has likely already progressed a bit since then. So this is likely very close to the center of Lawton. So if you're not to your tornado spot yet, you need to get there now as the storm continues to track off to the northeast now. If you're in the western half of Van Buren County, tornado warning has been dropped for you. Remains in effect for the eastern half. Again, this rotation appears to be the most pronounced that it has been in the lifespan of this storm so far. We're hearing from the National Weather Service, chaser confirmed wall cloud and at least one brief funnel cloud underneath the storm near Decatur. No indications that it had touched down as of yet, but that was when the storm was about 10 minutes ago, and we've only seen it strengthen since then. So there certainly is reason to believe that we may have a tornado close to the ground or on the ground heading toward the Lawton area at this time.
I was looking at cloud bases earlier today, and they were estimated as they came in to be close to about 2,500 feet. So if you think about it, if a tornado forms, it has to drop 2,500 feet from cloud to ground. And that doesn't sound well, it might sound like a lot to some people, but that's actually not all that much, especially when we're dealing with heavy rain on top of that. And something else that I've just started to notice here, and do my best to kind of put it together, is in Kalamazoo County, we're also starting to see a little bit of rotation. This is outside of the tornado warned zone, and it might just be a single scan that's popping up on the west side of Kalamazoo, kind of towards Business 131, cutting on the north side of Westwood. But taking this back and moving it forward, you can see it's a touch disorganized, but it's present, and it's headed towards Parchment and East Cooper. At this point, I would say the concern is light to moderate, that this could come together and become another spin-up tornado. But it has caught our eye, and it does show that there are other areas within this line of showers and storms that we have to watch carefully, because other portions of this storm could spin up a quick tornado. Lawton, by far, you need to get into your safe spot. Scan by scan, this just continues to look quite impressive. Some of the rotation is broad. Usually tornadoes touch down when the rotation is tight. But that little bullseye there is the biggest indicator to me that we have something of deep concern passing on the south side of Lawton.
Yeah, if we can actually take graphics one, what I'll show you is what's happened over the last 45 minutes, and what you're watching is the area of rotation. Those shades of red indicate greater rotation. You'll notice, according to the Grand Rapids radar, the rotation signature has intensified again over the last few scans. And the other thing to note about this is that storms will cycle, supercells will cycle, and so there's the potential that the storm is still just as strong as it was, but we're seeing the storm cycling, re-intensifying. And so the latest scan has us directly over Lawton, and now what we're going to be concerned about next, to be honest with you, is probably south side of Matawan and heading toward I-94, US 131, the Portage area here before too long. Again, if it continues on its current trajectory with its current strength.
Kalamazoo camera has a ton of lightning, but you can't see anything.
Yeah, if we could take the Kalamazoo camera in boxes, that'd be great, just to show you what's happening in terms of lightning. There is a ton of lightning, especially associated with this tornado-warned storm. And again, it's worth mentioning, we've said it a lot now, or I've said it a lot, but this entire atmosphere on the southeast side of the storm is untapped. There's no precipitation filling in that would inhibit the strength of the storm. So we continue to see winds flowing in, and that means that it's likely going to continue maintaining its strength. And it almost looks like a bit of a notch here on the south side of Lawton right here. And that lines up pretty well with the area of rotation that we're seeing almost directly over the city of Lawton, which is now likely a bit further east. And I would not be terribly surprised if we get a new warning here in the next few minutes, considering the strength that this storm continues to exhibit.
Looks like the strong rotation is headed over West 4th Street in Lawton, South Main Street, Orchard Street, South Nursery Street, 3rd Street, and 29th Street. There's a lot of farmland in this area as well, but unfortunately it looks like portions of this strong rotation, which you're seeing in dark red, are headed right over the town itself and just to the south side of the town of Lawton. This is going to continue close to 66th Avenue, Country Road 652, a lot of lightning at play. You're likely hearing the rain and seeing the flashes of lightning before you're getting the wind. So switching views, you can see that we have a big downpour over Lawton itself, and the rain shield is all the way off to the east of Lawton, beginning to move into Texas Corners and Mattawan. But the potential for strong winds and even a tornado is still a ways back from the leading edge of rain. Do not go outside to try to see if there is a tornado. It would be incredibly difficult to spot. Ewing Road right now, 32nd Street, that's where the rotation might land. Zooming out and putting it in perspective, you can see far and wide, this is the biggest bullseye that we're watching.
I'm sorry, Ellen, I don't mean to make noises while you're talking. If we can go to the latest scan on graphics 1, it looks like it's re-intensified, the center of circulation, based on the radar tools that we have available to us. And that is not a good sign. Basically, radar is showing us almost due over Lawton. I would guess at this point it's probably on the east side of Lawton, very close to this road, which looks to be Main Street through the town of Lawton. I'm not sure what it's called on the north or south side. Main Street right through Lawton, and here's a brand new scan as this thing continues to track eastward. Let's see if we can get this pulled up with enhanced colors here. This area right in here, I think, is where if there is some really strong rotation, it would be right where you see those light colors meeting the gray and the reds. If there is going to be strong rotation, it's likely going to be right in that area. And some of the tools we're looking at now indicate that it may be a bit stronger than what this radar is indicating, which would be a bit concerning for the strength of this storm as it continues to track to the northeast.
If we look at this in motion over the last 15 minutes or so, it's really interesting to see how the rotation changes in placement quite a bit. Again, that's why when it comes to a tornado warning, you really have to pay attention to the entire warning box, because the tornado itself, if it touches down, could oscillate and bounce around depending on where the peak winds are located. So as we've mentioned, Lawton really needs to take cover. Even Mattawan needs to be on standby. And if you live in Kalamazoo County, especially the south side of Kalamazoo, Portage, Schoolcraft, Vicksburg, I would recommend starting to get to your safe spot.
We have a new severe thunderstorm warning for the southern half of Kalamazoo County. So this looks to be just to the south of the city of Kalamazoo. Includes Oshtemo, Portage, Schoolcraft, Vicksburg, all the way east to Galesburg and Climax. This is a severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag on it. So at this time, the Weather Service has determined that this does not present necessarily an immediate continued tornado threat as it moves into Kalamazoo County. We are still seeing some signs of pretty strong rotation with this, but at this time it does not appear to rise to the level of a potentially ongoing tornado, at least at this time.
Yeah, and one of the things that we were watching earlier is the fact that even with tight rotation, we haven't been seeing damage on the ground yet. And sometimes when you have wintertime storms, thunderstorms that is, they are what's called elevated. Elevated storms sometimes have a difficult time breaking through a boundary layer and touching down on the ground. So even though you can have really strong rotational waft, there's an extra barrier keeping that storm from producing the tornado and having it hit the ground. Still, it's not impossible, and it absolutely bears watching. I would not be surprised if at any time and in any scan we had a tornado tossed to the ground or touched down to the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at this point in time it'd probably be good to see this system in full, do a brief recap, because I have a feeling the tornado warning is going to expire. And if we have severe thunderstorm warnings on board, might just be good for everyone to keep an eye on it, and we can check in on potentially election coverage.
Yeah, so let's do a reset here. If we can go back to our graphics 1, we'll show you exactly what's happening here across West Michigan. We have a tornado warning that remains in effect for eastern Van Buren County, essentially all of Kalamazoo County, eastern Allegan County, and most of Berry County. And this is as this complex of storms continues to move east. Good news is, in the Grand Rapids area, the storm weakened pretty substantially as it moved to the north. So no severe thunderstorm warnings in place for the Grand Rapids area. Our focus is essentially on the I-94 corridor at this time. Again, tornado warning does remain in effect for Van Buren County, but the threat has now shifted. If there is going to be a potential for some wind damage, it would likely be centered right in here, just to the east of Lawton, tracking on the north side of Schoolcraft, south side of Portage, over toward Vicksburg, and there's also chances thing continues to curve north, in which Portage could see some strong winds here over the course of the next, let's call it 20 minutes or so. So that's what we're watching now. Again, tornado warning still in effect, but at this time it looks like it's getting fairly close to moving out of Van Buren County. The fact that the Weather Service chose to not extend the tornado warning means they no longer believe there is an imminent tornado threat heading into Kalamazoo County, but that's not to say we couldn't see that rotation tighten up quickly again. So that's what we're going to be watching pretty closely over the next few minutes.
Yeah, we want to make sure that everybody is staying safe, so we are going to be watching this scan by scan. If something looks concerning to us, we will let you know. We'll be the first to let you know, in fact. So in this point in time, everyone should be staying safe, and for now, we'll toss it back to you guys.